How common is it to see American women working in construction? I'm curious whether American women work in labor-intensive construction roles. Specifically, I'm referring to positions such as masons, bricklayers, plasterers, and plumbers, rather than managerial or engineering roles within Construction.com commercial construction PM here. In management and engineering, women are relatively common in the industry. In the skilled trades, women are very, very rare. Most women in construction are flaggers or laborers doing generally light work. That said, I have seen women working labor-intensive skilled trades as plumbers, truck drivers, tin knockers, electricians, and even a structural iron worker. The company I work for had a woman crane rigging supervisor for a while. She was tough as nails and one of the best riggers we ever had. I knew a female lineman. She was basically a unicorn in the field. I think the whole industry is men. I feel like I've encountered a surprising number of female welders. Still incredibly male-dominated, but compared to like operators, I'm a little surprised how many women I've run into. I'm a woman who took welding in college, but I wasn't any good, and my instructor kept telling me to stick with it because women are more patient and make the best welders. Not sure if that's the truth, but it was nice of him to encourage me. There are several studies showing that women have steadier hands than men when it comes to precision work, which is definitely useful in welding and fabrication. This may be apocryphal, but supposedly the parachutes of NASA's return capsules were all hand-stitched by all-woman teams because of that higher dexterity, though I suppose it could also have been a healthy dose of mid-century misogyny. When my sister and I were growing up, my dad built his own airplane in the basement of our home. My sister did a lot of the stitching of the wings because she was really good at it. She is now one of the 3% of FAA-licensed aircraft mechanics who are women. In my line of work, I see female scaffolders, utility workers, truck drivers, and welders all the time. A lot of female managers and engineers, too. My mother did a little bit of drywall, but mostly painting. I'm not as good as a pro, but I'm better than most DIYers. Woman former construction worker here. I was one of 2 women in my entire region of 110 workers. I was an electrician in a residential solar company, so not quite the same as traditional construction, but yeah. There were 8/14 of the office workers who were ladies, but they always gave me and the other laborer women cold shoulders. The office workers are nice and pretty and straight, and it's just us lesbians out climbing on roofs. I've heard of and chatted with straight women who got into construction, but they're a tiny minority. It's a lot of butch girls. Being gay is an advantage, because construction workers are really shitty to women, especially if they think they can get laid. So it makes it all a lot easier if they know they don't have a chance. Exterminatrix here, and I couldn't agree more about lesbian laborers. 4 out of 127 techs are women, and out of those, there are 3 lesbians and 1 butch bisexual, me. Hey, shout out to butch bisexuals. I'm actually a futch bisexual, but I told everyone at that job I was lesbian and taken because fuck 'em. Oh my god, yes! I made the mistake of not telling everyone I was a lesbian, and I had 2 incidents with guys being inappropriate and asking for things on work sites. Thankfully, my company is amazing, and for every asshole, there's 20 awesome dudes that have my back. One of my least favorite things about PC law school stuff was getting rid of the trix suffix. An administratrix or an executrix sounds way more badass than administrator or executor. I'd hire an exterminatrix in a hot minute if she was good at eliminating all the pesky bugs with hatred in her eyes. Oh, I'm laughing, not because men can't be assholes, but because lesbians can be hilarious and to the point. I just remember a lesbian gal that did masonry tell a guy, "Do I look like a gal that's interested in your dumb ass? Probably not work safe, but who is going to report that burn? The office workers are nice and pretty and straight, and it's just us lesbians out climbing on roofs." Do you find it odd that lesbians, in your experience, tend to work more masculine-type jobs? Nope. My very straight aunt worked in construction for decades, and she said she wished she was gay. Men just pressure any woman who seems like she could ever be into them. She got married and worked with her husband. Also, there's a community term of butch, which means women who have a more masculine gender expression while still being women. Working in construction is a masculine kind of thing, so you only get women who are comfortable being women and being masculine, which ain't common in the city. More common with redneck women. But I worked construction after I moved to the city. My aunt is a master electrician. She worked in construction. She was harassed literally every single day on the job for years until she quit. It's pretty rare. I don't know the exact statistics off the top of my head, but I can tell you that I don't see many female construction workers. It's about 5 to 7% of field workers. That tracks. Yeah. I saw a female welder once. My goddaughter is going to school for welding. Most of the female welders I know are sculpture artists, though, her included. So people seeking a welder are unlikely to come across her because that's not how she'll market herself. Yeah, I'm talking about on a construction site. I was one for 5 years. The men made it awful, honestly. I've been in steel for about 23 years. I've seen women hired to work our shop twice. They both quit in less than a week. I'm a woman who has always worked in blue-collar stuff. I'm almost always the only woman on the crew, and have often been the first woman to ever fill the position. Badass? Thank you. I'm pretty proud of what I've accomplished. I occasionally see a few women working on road crews. Unfortunately, none of them whistle at me. I see them often as flaggers. It'd whistle at you. Now, Kith, the engineer for the public building I work at, is a woman. She's amazing and much better than all of the men who have previously held the role. I'm sure she knows she's constantly having to prove herself, so she can't be anything less than great, or everyone will assume it's because she's a woman. She is the only woman I've dealt with in this role, but I hope more follow. And to clarify, a building engineer isn't the type of engineer that has to go to college and designs things. They manage the physical building and coordinate repair projects and tradespeople and such. Also, there are a number of women in trades organizations out there trying to train and recruit more women. But it's difficult because the work environment can be very unpleasant due to bullying and harassment. I feel like I've seen a small increase of women in the last, 0.4? 5 years? Still mostly men, that is undeniable. But when I pass a construction site, I sometimes see at least 1 or 2 women walking around in work clothing/vests/hard hats growing up. I don't recall ever seeing or hearing about women doing that kind of work. There's not many. But the ones we do have are tough as nails. And they don't take no shit. Glad I'm friends with most of them, LOL. There's a major construction project going on the Seattle waterfront right now. And the construction company working on it has a fair amount of women that I've noticed. I haven't paid too much attention to what role all of them had. But I remember talking to one woman who was operating an excavator near the ferry building about their timeline, etc. I see women in road crews once in a while, most of the time holding the stop signs or something. About 10 years ago, we had a HVAC tech come and look at an issue with our furnace that was a woman. Otherwise, it seems fairly rare. I know for a fact that less than 1% of masons in North America are women. I cannot say for other trades, but it is very low. I've heard that auto mechanic and plumbing were the most popular trades with women. And even in those trades, I can't imagine it's more than 5% tops. I have worked with a female mason once, though. This was in a small company, too. So they are out there. It's just a ridiculously low number. Masonry in particular is just an extremely physically demanding job, and men typically have comparative strength advantages. Most women simply do not want to work jobs that completely destroy them physically. Why would they? Most men don't even want to work those jobs. I know a couple of female welders, but it's probably still 98% men at the shipyard they work at. Fairly uncommon, though it's getting more common. I think basically all the occupations listed above are still all 95% plus men, statistically. I could be wrong, but you could always just check the BLS. Yeah, I think construction work might be the most male-dominated profession out there. I've never seen a woman doing construction in real life. My entire roof was completely replaced by a team of 2 people, an absolutely tiny woman and a small guy. They worked fast and got it all done in 3 days. I was a mason for 14 years. In our small town, there were about 5 crews. There was only one other woman doing the same, I have seen on YouTube. From my experience dealing with a lot of crews, for every 20 men I would see 1 woman. Very rough estimate, and this was 5-ish years ago that I dealt with them all the time. The foreman always told me that the women were best workers they had. They just didn't have a lot of them, at least the ones I talked to about it. They probably felt like they had to prove something IMO, so worked harder than the boys. Edit to say 1 of 20 that stayed. You'd have people swing in and out every week. Reliability is hard in construction. In commercial construction, I almost never see them in field labor roles. In project management and administrative positions, it's fairly common, though. Very rare. Women make up approximately 10% of the construction workforce. This is easily searched on the internet. Yeah, and 95% of that 10% are admins, PMs, drivers, flaggers, etc. It's extremely rare to see a woman on a job site welding or framing. It also depends what you mean by construction. I'd wager that most of that 10% are in an office environment versus field workers. I've seen a lot more of the ladies directing traffic on road jobs, but haven't seen any of them swinging a hammer or operating heavy equipment. Except my wife, but she's only a lady for special occasions. Once caught her with a jackhammer when I got home from work, yelling, "Your rotary hammer thing was too slow operating heavy equipment." It's kind of hard to tell who's in the enclosed road grader or bulldozer just driving past. I've known several women who operate heavy equipment. Yeah, it's pretty common for women to be interior decorators, like they go on the site to make sure the correct chandeliers were put up, the light fixtures look good, or they are doing a tour for customers. But those ladies aren't exactly hanging the chandeliers themselves. Having worked among various skilled trades at generation sites, there are very few women in these positions. I'd say 1% or so. As NDT inspectors, we had about 30% women on our traveling team, but as OP pointed out, that is considered an engineering offshoot. Skilled labor is in high demand and pays well. We need to encourage girls to go into these professions. Not crazy to see, but not common. It's less than 1 in 10, perhaps less than 120. There's a lot of construction going on around my neighborhood, and I know of a couple in tile work and flooring and a painter. Not unheard of, but not common. I see 1 or 2 on most of our commercial construction crews that come in from all over the U.S. I know one woman who's an electrician, and my girlfriend used to work in a scrapyard hauling junk metal. But other those examples, I've never seen/known a woman working a job like you're describing. They're a small percentage of the workforce, but they're definitely present. I've seen women working in most of the trades involved in road construction, including laborers, equipment operators, teamsters, pile drivers, and electricians. A good friend of mine started out as an inspector, but switched over to operating equipment because the money was much better, and she wouldn't have to deal with all the paperwork. I'm an electrician at a company with a probably 150-ish people, and I know of 2 women who work in the field. The only time I've seen women in the field on the construction team, they have been flaggers. This is so weird. I just this morning drove past a lot of construction and I was thinking, wow, you really see so many more women on these sites than you used to. There must have been an almost 50-50th split on this crew doing road work, and I feel like I've been seeing that more and more lately. I worked in getting union benefits for folks in the trades. Women were an absolute rarity in union roles like painter, linemen, welders, ironworkers, electrical workers, boilermakers, plumbers, carpenters, etc. They existed, but the women I met in those unions usually had an office job, admin role, or were engineers. You'd find some women that worked alongside the guys, but it was not at all common. I have seen women working construction, but typically in roles that don't require as intensive physical labor. I'm considering becoming an electrician, and I was a bit worried about anyone being willing to hire me as a woman, but I see female tradies here in Perth a lot, so it doesn't look too bad. There's a few. I have seen them on road construction crews. They are usually flaggers or drivers. I've seen some operate forklifts. There's a woman here locally who drives a bright pink dump truck. Not sure what she does. Maybe she owns her own business and hauls scrap or something. I've only ever seen 3 in my life. The women painting my neighbor's house a couple weeks ago, and a roofer back in my hometown. She was so famous. From it, she got on billboards, etc., and became part of the company's advertisement that she was the girl roofer. It's extremely rare. I work in the AEC industry, and I've been to a lot of construction sites. I've never seen one that didn't have any women at all, but I also haven't seen one that had a high number of women, like more than a few. I repair fiberglass and acrylic tubs, showers, and vinyl windows, and soon a fiberglass pillar at a bank. I work with fiberglass. I'm constantly on job sites with the other trades. It's my mom's business. Most people assume we're the cleaning ladies, which for whatever reason still gets under her skin, but IDC. New construction is our biggest chunk of work. When asked, I tell people I work in construction. On the sites themselves, I typically only see female painters, and that's a rarity. I may have seen a handful of women over the last 8 years doing anything other than management. I'm an electrician, and I believe we are like 98% male. I've only ever met 2 women electricians. Pretty rare. You wouldn't be shocked, but I'd say it's less than 8% generally, and depending on the sector, far less. It's entirely up to women to increase that percentage. My company will hire a woman for a STEM position in a heartbeat, but so far I've only ever seen one. I worked mainly HVAC, but did all kinds of jobs, including security systems, home theater, trash management, etc. For years, and I don't think I've ever once stumbled upon a woman on a construction site working. They are not uncommon at supply houses, in sales, or doing any kind of office job adjacent to the sweaty stuff, but rarely out in the field. On the job sites I've been on, I've seen women working for plumbers, electricians, laborers, dump truck drivers, drywallers, painters, and recently a crane operator. So yes, they're out there. I work for a general contracting company. We have 4 female field workers, one of which is a laborer, and the rest are carpenters. It's very rare. Out of a couple thousand plumbers in my union, there's probably 10 women, maybe less. Commercial construction superintendent with about 35 years in the industry. It's way more common than it used to be. And post-COVID, it's gotten more common than pre-COVID with the labor shortage and unions, trade schools, and labor groups reaching out to women more. I'd say we're at the point now where it's not at all weird to have women on the job for the good old boys club members. Sexist bullshit beyond other industries is almost non-existent. I run jobs with 150 workers on site every day, and I'd say it's extremely unusual to not have a woman on site these days. To add, at the management level, there are a lot of women. I swear that 1/2 of the owners' reps I work for are women. Rare, not the same thing, but I'm a mechanic. 24-yo female. Neon carpenter here. I've only worked with a small handful of women carpenters since I first became an apprentice about 7 years ago now. Definitely more common in some of the less physically taxing trades such as pipe fitters and electricians. Even more common to see women in construction, but on the office side such as engineers, project managers, architects. It's like asking about male elementary school teachers. They exist, but it's uncommon to the point that it's noticeable when you meet one. I'm in the office of a commercial general contractor. I'm an estimator. So I'm looking at quantities, leveling bids, verifying if change orders are accurate or appropriate. I work with project teams, but my role is typically complete once the contracts are negotiated. I'm out on site about every other week, more in the early phasing of a project, so it's typically men with their big toys. Excavators, cranes, dump trucks, skid steers, but I'm seeing more and more female heavy equipment operators on job sites. I will absolutely put on the hard hat and walk a site whenever I can get out there. Women are typically safer on sites than men. They are more accurate with lift load placements, don't exceed lift limits, or overstretch equipment. Not very. I've been on hundreds of job sites. Actual laborers, tradespeople? It's rare. It was more common on home builds, especially custom, than any commercial setting. A big commercial project like a wastewater treatment plant, hospital, campus building, etc. I don't know if I ever saw a female tradesperson. It is not very common at all. In fact, rather rare. Very, very rare. I've only seen like one woman working in construction in my entire life, not including management. Anecdotally, I've worked on many construction sites, and I've occasionally seen females attached to bigger crews. It's a small percentage, definitely under 10%, probably under 5%. I've heard it compared to seeing a unicorn in the wild. Also, anecdotally, I'd say there are more females in construction-adjacent jobs than construction. Larger crews tend to have things like safety coordinators and the like, where I've noticed females to be overrepresented, much more common than seeing a female welder or something. We get project goals from the state for 10%. Owner gets some credit. For some tasks, it's fine. We have multiple women welders who are solid at what they do. Harder for other tasks, where you are moving heavy stuff around for hours. On the management end, like the jobs where you're likely to be in the office, that's common. The getting your hands dirty on site jobs, extremely rare. You mostly see them in the office side in some capacity. Project management, HR, secretaries, or engineers. Doing actual construction work is where you see few women, for what should be fairly obvious reasons. Occasionally, I see women working as flaggers on road construction sites, but it's rare. Nationally, about 96% of workers in construction occupations are men. The picture is a bit different in the construction industry, as that includes support activities like accounting or taking phone calls and scheduling projects. Our employment data looks different whether you're focusing on what the worker does versus what good or service is provided by the business. Not common at all. I have seen it maybe once or twice in my lifetime, with most recent being last week. She was not performing hard labor, though, but was directing traffic during road construction. I worked 30-plus years in construction, some for a big HVAC, installing hospital, school heating and cooling systems. Only met one female. She was a drywall finisher. It isn't common unless you count the engineers or PMs. I work in a blue-collar job, in a place that employs many electrical linemen, and there aren't a lot of women there. The number is growing, though, as the union is trying to diversify the workplace, so they are a lot more forgiving when accepting women to the program. Not common, but some Redditors will surely be along soon to tell you how much more common it is so they can get their virtue points in order.